I have some questions from people. First, I want to I know that you come from affiliate background, right? That's where you got your. So if you can tell more about yourself, how you got started with online marketing and all of this stuff.
Sure. So I started doing internet advertising actually when I was 19. I started an affiliate program for actually webcam sites way back when, and then did that for about 5 years, made a bunch of money, and then I went mainstream and started an affiliate network. Like everybody else. And this is back in the EWA days. I don't know how long you've been doing affiliate marketing or if you even do affiliate marketing.
I'm not in that space.
Okay. So I did a lot of affiliate marketing basically. And then about 7 years now ago, I got out of that and started my own offer. It was a lead gen and we were selling leads to attorneys in the US. For Social Security disability. So people that basically, were disabled and needed help from the government. So we would sell those leads to lawyers. Then I sold that company and then started doing mass tort leads, which are class action lawsuit leads, which I don't know if you've ever been, if you go to the US, you see ads like this all the time. It's like, did you take this medicine and have a heart attack? You may be entitled to money, So we did those basically, but on Facebook, and those leads are worth $300 to $1,000 per lead. So it's worth a lot. Yeah. So we did that.
And for you, how much, if you do that model, how much does it cost you to generate such lead?
It was, different. We did a bunch of different lawsuits and it was, different on each one. But in general, we were able to do 100 to 200% ROI net, and it's all clean, white hat, et cetera. And that was all from Facebook traffic. And that's when I started my Facebook ad buyer group. Also, because at the time there was no good places to talk about Facebook ads. So then I started that. I was just helping people for years, literally 7 years ago. I've been doing this since I've been doing that, just helping people. And then I got into consulting, just only because people were like, "Hey, can you help me with my ads? I'll pay you." And I was like, "You're going to pay me, really? Okay, let's do it." So then I started doing that. And then there was just so many people that were coming to me that I was like, okay, I need a system here, So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do masterminds now where I can help 20 people at one time and answer all the questions that they didn't even know to ask. Because a lot of people won't, they don't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah.
So then I came up with a 2-day curriculum, started doing the masterminds. Then I got into doing retreats, which are really fun. You should definitely come to one. They're just 3 days of fun. There's no speeches or presentations. It's just 3 days of fun. Doing one in Ibiza coming up in July, and then Phuket, Thailand in December. And then let's see. Oh, and then Ad Leaks is my baby. So that's I always recommend everyone these days to start or make your business into a subscription business in some way. I think that's going to be very, very important for cost rising on Facebook and being able 100%. To compete.
Cool. And so right now, what's your main focus? You focus on e-commerce, or you focus for your consulting, and where you're seeing the whole trend is moving?
So what I'm focusing on is community building. So I'm focusing on building all of my communities. I don't know if you know or not. I have 12 Facebook groups, not just one. Okay, cool. So I'm focusing on growing all of those. And then Ad Leaks, which is my subscription business. So I see the future as a mix of e-com and subscription. So subscription e-com, I guess you could call it. That's in my opinion where things are going. And I think basically you have to have that. You have to have that higher lifetime value. Otherwise, you just won't be able to compete. So that's where I've been focusing my time. And then I also started this cool little side project actually. Which is not my main focus, but it's called celebrityshoutouts.com. And it's where you can go and you can just buy shout outs from influencers and celebrities, really easily. There's a lot of directories out there where you can search influencers. And do you do any influencer marketing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. It's a big hassle, right? You got to contact them, work it out, do contracts, try to negotiate a good price. And you're only buying one post or whatever, right? So you don't get a good price. we buy like in bulk, so we get good prices. And you can literally just go to the site and like add to cart, check out. Super easy, you know. So that's a cool little side project I've been working on. Yeah.
Cool. And so what happens now, like in your experience with bidding strategies? Like you invented so many of them. Like it's like what happens? Like what's coming? What's new? Like a lot of people we're very excited about this. So if you can share some stuff.
Like new methods I have coming, you mean?
Yeah.
So I have 2 new methods coming. Okay. One of them I'm calling the zombie method. Okay. Because it brings your ads back to life.
Okay. That's good.
It's like when you're running a campaign and it goes to shit, right? Which happens all the time.
Yeah.
And then how to basically bring it back to life. So that would be the zombie method. And then I have the new 388 method that I'm going to debut at iStack in Barcelona. I'm doing a speech there. So I'm going to debut that. I don't have a name for it yet. I'll have to come up with a name, but basically it's going to be my 388 method, but made for CBO.
Okay. And so how are you currently, like, have you switched like fully to CBO? So I chatted with Christina, like she mentioned yesterday that you still do asset budgeting, right? So like, how is it? You're like switching most of your campaigns to CBO or still asset budget? Do you use like CBO like fully for all of your campaigns, or is that like just partially?
I actually recommend right now not using CBO. If it's working for you, that's awesome. I find that it's only working maybe like 10 or 20% of the time. And it seems to be a little bit random, and then there's a lot of pacing issues also. So machine learning, right? Machine learning is exponential, right? So it starts out kind of shitty, and then it gets better and better and better, and then whoosh, it gets much better really fast, right? It's exponential. So I recommend right now not using CBO for like maybe another month or 2. And by then it should be much better. Unless it's working for you, right? If it's working, rock on. But I'm finding at our agency that we're having a lot more success with just like a traditional ad set budget.
Cool. And so with like you, I know you will be sharing some of the like low budget like testing strategies, right? So like how do you typically approach it? Because like, do you typically like give when you start a new account, and people have asked this, like, do you give it like some data, some time to basically collect the data, or like you start optimizing like quite fast based on like initial like KPIs?
So there's 2 ways to do it basically. The first way would be my preferred method, which is you just start with high budgets. Not everyone has this option, obviously, but when you do that, let's say that you want to spend like $100 a day on an ad set, right? Why not set the budget at $300 a day and then just pause it early after it's spent $100 if it's not doing well, right? But then if it is doing well, you just let it spend. You know, it's like a pre-scaling. I'm calling it. So you're setting yourself up to scale without, like, you don't have to spend more money. It's the same money you're spending, but if it's doing good, you just let it run, right? So that's the way that I usually do it. So I'll just like triple my budgets and then just cut stuff early in the day if it's not working. So that's one way to do it, and that's my personal favorite. For people that don't necessarily have big budgets to work with, so with big budgets, you can go right to optimizing for purchases. Okay, it's no problem. You're going to feed the algorithm plenty of sales and data, so it's not going to hurt you. If you're not working with big budgets, then you need to take a slightly different approach. Because if you optimize for purchases right off the bat, and you don't get enough of them, then Facebook is not going to be able to optimize properly. And I'll give you like a little example. Let's say that. Let's say you're running traffic in the US for some e-com product, right? Let's just say it's shoes, okay? So you're running shoes ads in United States, and let's say day 1, your budget's not that big, but day 1, you spent $50, okay, total, right? Across multiple ad sets. Facebook's going to say like, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit in New York, some in Texas, California, Mississippi, Florida, California, right? It's going to spread it around to see where you get conversions, right? So let's say that you get one conversion only on day one, right? You only spend $50 or whatever, right? And that, let's say that conversion was in Mississippi. Okay, random, right? Let's say random. So now day two comes, and Facebook's going to spend a little bit more in Mississippi than the other states because it thinks that was like the only place you had a conversion, right?
Okay.
So then day two, let's say you get, because it spent most of your, like a good amount of your budget, probably maybe 25, maybe half the budget or so in Mississippi, and then it's probably spread the rest out to Florida, the other states, right? But then you get a couple more sales in Mississippi, okay? By chance, right? 2 sales, not a big deal. But to Facebook, that's a big deal because now on day 3, they're thinking, hey, the only place this is converting is Mississippi, so we're just going to spend all the money in Mississippi. And that could be a terrible audience for you. And then it could be, and then you try to scale. You're like, oh, I'm getting a good cost per sale. And then you try to scale. And of course you can't because Facebook's focusing most of the budget on one bad state, with low population. So feeding Facebook the right amount of data is very important so that it doesn't make conclusions based on, on bad data, really. So basically, if you're starting with a new budget, what would be better to do would be to start with basically whichever conversion goal is going to get you your 10 a day per ad set. So if you can't get 10 purchases a day, then do add to carts, right? If you can't get the add to carts, then you can definitely get the view content, right? You can get 10 clicks a day, right? So and then once you have some view contents, obviously you're going to get some add to carts. And then Facebook knows people that are adding to cart. They're getting some data on this. So then when you optimize for add to cart, it already has some data to look at, and it's not just basing it on like 3 conversions, So feeding. So there is some truth to this warming up thing people call it, right? I don't really like to call it warming up, but it kind of is warming up, I guess, by running view contents or add to carts first, and then purchases. Typically, you're not going to make money on the view contents or add to carts, right? It typically is not profitable, but it'll do better when you get to the purchase stage, generally.
Okay.
So hopefully
and so right now, like with all of this, like you mentioned, like we said, like with subscription, right? So like at the end of the day, I mean, like Facebook is just a platform, right? And like all of the costs, like they go up, right? So like, do you see like the application for this, like, so you mentioned e-commerce, for instance, it can implement like subscription boxes or some other option for like increasing that like lifetime value, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, let's say whatever you're selling, you should be able to make it into a subscription box. Absolutely. Whether it's health and beauty or fitness or shoes or whatever, you should be able to put some sort of subscription box together. Absolutely, to get a higher lifetime value. And one easy thing that you can do, though, without even having to, because getting a subscription box together is a little bit of work, right? You got to go and get some custom boxes, stock some products, get a fulfillment center. It's a little bit of work, right? So one easy hack that you can do right away to make more money is start a monthly subscription for your store. Just if you're using Shopify, just get Recharge. It's a super easy app to use, and then just charge like, I don't know, $5 to $10 a month to be in your VIP club. And then they get a forever 15% discount or something they can use, or 10% discount or whatever. But you make them pay for that. You know what I mean? And it's something cheap, $5, $10 a month, whatever. But then they're going to buy more stuff because they're paying for that membership, just like Amazon, right? You pay that Prime fee, you get faster shipping, but then you end up buying more stuff because you get faster shipping and you get discounts and stuff, right? So you can do like the same thing, and then you can build up 1,000 customers at even $5 a month. It's still $5,000 a month recurring, with no products having to send out. Free money, basically. Like you would have given the people a 10% coupon anyway. So that's a good way to do like a fast hack to make more money. It's just start like a customer loyal, like a VIP program, basically.
Cool.
See a question here.
Yeah, we have a question. Longer content, by the way, can you advise about using Instagram influencers when you don't have a lot of money for Facebook ads?
Good question. That is, it is great to do if you can get good deals. So if you don't have a lot of money to spend, You're going to want to look for like micro influencers that have probably 100K or less followers. And then you can get good deals from them. Sometimes you can even just give them a free product and they'll do a post. And then you just want to retarget on Facebook. And retargeting alone, you should have a great ROI. And you're going to want to definitely use dynamic product ads. They typically do much better than regular retargeting for e-com. At least what I've seen. It usually does like twice as good as regular retargeting.
So someone asked, I've seen a lot of great stuff from that guy in 2016. What's he up to these days? So what you're up to these days?
So yeah, these days I don't want to keep like tooting my own horn much, but so these days I'm doing I have an ad agency, Agency Y. We specialize in 100K plus budgets monthly, so large spend. Then I speak at conventions, hold masterminds, retreats, and ad leaks is my main focus, which is like a subscription community where we also have like 100 deals on like you can get 15% off VWO, for example, or 10% off Companion Labs, or discount on what runs where, and Taboola. We have like basically cool discounts and stuff on tons of different products and services. And then obviously, and then a Facebook group also, which is very, very high level with really good contributors and stuff. So, so that's what I'm up to these days. Yeah.
Cool. So you're not into like lead generation, all of these like projects, like affiliate.
Say that again.
So the like lead generation. So you're not into those projects anymore, like lead generation.
So I don't really do much lead gen now. I was doing that very heavily for years. But after selling my last company, I think it was Digitize IQ, I sold that in 2015 maybe, or 2016, right around there. And then I took like a year off and I was just doing random stuff for like a year and traveling. But yeah, I don't really do much lead gen anymore. So now I'm just focusing on my personal brand, the ad agency, ad leaks, and now celebrity shout outs. So I still have a lot of stuff on my plate, but not anymore, not any lead gen. Basically, it's like e-com and info products.
Cool.
Yeah.
So someone is asking, do you suggest we cut ads aggressively? For example, $10 ad budget investing phase cut is spend $7 for no sale, or let it spend $20 to make a decision.
Ooh, you're cutting out pretty bad. I didn't really hear what you said.
So do you suggest we cut ads aggressively? For example, $10 ad budget in testing phase, cut if spent $7 and no sale, or let it spend.
It's still hard to hear you. Can you put the comment on the screen?
Yeah, I think it's on the screen. Let me see. Okay, can you see the comment now? Copy maybe.
Okay, here we go. So do you suggest we cut ads aggressively? Example, $10 ad budget in testing phase, cut if spent $7 and no sale, and let us spend $20 to make a decision. So I know a lot of people that do this, and it can work, absolutely. But it totally depends. People will say like, hey, cut it at $7 if you don't have a sale. But what about if your product costs like $100? You're not going to get a sale in the first $7. It's just like highly unlikely. So one, you have to take into account your product cost, right? Or your cost per sale. If your cost per sale is only $5, then cutting it after $7 is not terrible. But if your product if your cost per sale is $20, then obviously cutting it after $7 is not good because you're cutting it early. So one, you got to figure that out. So I usually would let it spend. If I want to be aggressive, then I'll let it spend 1.5 times my normal cost per sale on a specific ad before I cut it. So if my ad cost is, my cost per sale is usually $10, I'll let it spend $15 and then cut the ad for the day only, not for good. And then I'll let it run the next day also, and let it run for 3 days like that before cutting it for good. Okay. So, and one of the things I see people do all the time is they cut ads or ad sets even too early, and it's bad for the Facebook algorithm. It's like if you're running a race. And then you're just getting in the stride. You're in the zone. You're feeling it. You're finding the good swing. and then boom, someone just says race over, goodbye. And then you got to go race over there. Like, it just throws you off. You're like, you're in the zone, and then you just like stop. So basically just don't cut too aggressively. Otherwise you could be losing out on some really, really awesome ad sets and audiences.
Cool.
Yeah, hopefully.
So another comment here. I tried your surfing strategy and must say it worked great first day, but I hardly got results from the same ad set again. Do you recommend that duplicating campaigns more common?
Okay. Yeah. So the surfing strategy, for any of you guys in the group here that don't know what it is, put simply, it's just basically if you have an ad set that's doing killer for the day. Sorry, I got landscapers over here. If you have an ad set that's doing killer for the day, like maybe 100% ROI, something like that, then you can basically, if you have at least 8 or 10 sales, you can straight up just double the budget at like 9 a.m. or at noon latest. I would try not to do it after noon. But see, so I tried your surfing strategy. Must say it works great, but I hardly got results from. Okay, so the only caveat there is that if you do double your ad set budget, again, you have to have 8 or 10 sales. Otherwise, you could lose money. So make sure you have enough sales before you do that. But then people say like, okay, should I put it back to the original budget at night, or should I let it be at the higher budget for tomorrow? So generally, if you let it be at the higher budget, it's a gamble. It's just like doubling your budget, at night if you had a good day yesterday, which is a gamble, right? You don't know if it's going to do good or not. So generally, I recommend resetting it back to the original budget again for at least a few days in a row. And then if you surf the same ad set like 3 days in a row, then leave it at the higher budget or put it like somewhere in the middle. So if your budget was like 1,000 and then you serve it to 2,000 and you reset it, then you serve it to 2,000 and reset it to 1,000. And then after a few days, maybe leave it at like 1,500, something like that. It's like training the ad set. It's like training the ad set at a higher budget on the days it's doing good, if that makes sense.
And so that should cause basically the ad set to be more like consistent.
More what?
More like consistent, like the performance to be like more
consistent. Yeah, it's based day to day. Yes, basically it should be more consistent. It's a more effective way of scaling. Because if you just like most people say, hey, just increase your budget 10 to 30% every couple days if it's doing good, right? That's what everyone tells you to do. But to me, from what I've seen, that's like gambling. It's literally like just throwing your chips on the casino and hoping you win. But so surfing is a great way to do it, and then you just after a few days you just kind of like leave it in the middle. So that's what I found to work best for scaling, at least. Yeah.
Cool. So what about using pages similar to your product niche and your strategy is retargeting on Facebook the people that came to your website from influencer, whether it's difference from dynamic and regular one?
Cool. So a lot of interesting questions here. So what about using pages similar to your product niche? I'm guessing you mean for the influencer stuff. So yeah, I mean, as long as the demographics of that page or that Instagram, as long as the demographics are good or similar, then it's a good thing to do. If it's like a sport, meme page, and you're selling like dresses for girls, then probably not a good fit. But if it's the same niche, then you should be okay. You're just obviously you should be paying lower for that. And a lot of those like meme pages, you got to be careful because a lot of them have fake engagement. So, and then let's see. I didn't see the rest of it.
What's the difference from dynamic ad and regular one?
That's pretty simple. So dynamic ad just lets you, test multiple headlines at once, multiple bodies, multiple images or videos, and it just like rotates them all. So it tries like every combination of all of them, and then allocates more budget to the winning one. That's like the simple explanation there.
Cool. Any custom audience tips and tricks?
So this is a good one. So custom audiences. I don't know if it's for lookalikes or not, but tips and tricks would be, okay, well, one cool little trick, actually. You can actually check to see what is in a lookalike. you can actually see what interests are in a lookalike, which is really freaking cool. So what you do is you go into Ads Manager, okay, go to your audiences, make a couple saved audiences, okay, where you do your some interests, the age, behaviors, whatever you're doing, right? Make a few saved audiences, okay. Then if you do the checkbox next to the custom audience and the saved audience, and then you go actions check audience overlap. You can actually then see how much overlap there is between your saved audience of interest and your lookalike. So then you can see, like, if there's a 50% overlap, you can see that half of your lookalike is those interests, basically, right? So you can kind of see what's in it, but then you can also see what's not in it by doing more saved audiences and saying, oh, there's like no overlap. Okay, Facebook doesn't think it's a good audience for me, but it might just have not enough data. So then you need to run some interests so that your lookalike kind of changes, So that's kind of a cool tip, yeah.
How important are the overlaps basically? Like, is that important in your experience? Like,
a good question. So at lower budget, it's basically not important at all. Very, like that. At high budgets, though, it becomes extremely important. And then people need to understand also the difference between audience overlap and auction overlap, right? Audience overlap is the same audience. Right? If you have a 1% lookalike and a 1% lookalike in two different ad sets, that's 100% audience overlap. But Facebook's going to show them to different segments of the audience.
Yeah.
So the auction overlap might not be that bad. But basically, I found that if you're at like 20% or less auction overlap, that you're okay. Once you start getting to like 25, 30%, around there, then you're going to see your costs start to go up. So it definitely affects you and raises your cost. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Another question. So, hi team, I almost watched most of your masterminds and conventions and didn't see you talk a lot about dynamic creative function. Can I use it for cloud method or sneak attack? I guess you're not a fan of it.
So I actually love dynamic creative. I just haven't incorporated that into many of my speeches. But my recent mastermind, I did go over that. I'm going over it a lot more. I update my masterminds every single time. So I've been testing dynamic creatives a lot for the past 2 months. For cold and hot traffic, it's killing it. So if you guys aren't using dynamic creative, I highly recommend you check that out. It's doing really well. Just don't try to do too many. Don't do like 10. Don't do too many headlines and stuff though. Otherwise, you'll have too many options. So just try to keep it relatively small, I guess, in the number of things you're testing. And as far as using it for the cloud or sneak attack, I actually haven't tried it with dynamic creative, but in theory, it should work just fine, especially on the cloud method, or sorry, the sneak attack method. It would work probably better. The cloud method, because you have a shitload of ad sets, you need to have a small number of ads. So for that, I wouldn't really recommend it, just because you'll have too many ads if you do dynamic. So, yeah.
Cool. So when selling multiple products in the same store, would you create pixel for each one of them or create custom conversions for each? If custom conversion is then starting optimizing for that custom conversion straight away?
That's a good question. So I get that question a lot, actually, and there's no right answer. If you're doing like a general store and you have a bunch of different categories, then in a perfect world, you would have a different pixel for each category. Okay. Like, because the demographics are going to be very different from, sporting goods to, like if you go into a Walmart or Target, or I don't know what stores you guys have in Europe that are like that, but, it's like a store that has everything, right?
Yeah.
The demographics are different for everything, right? So ideally you would have a different pixel, but that does become a huge hassle to manage. Then you're going to need to use essentially multiple ad accounts, or you could use Trackify and use it all in one ad account. But it's just kind of a big pain in the butt, basically. So in a perfect world, you would have multiple pixels, and then you do even one ad account per category. So you do like one ad account for sporting goods, one ad account for kitchen stuff, one for whatever, right? Just whatever. Every demographic has its own. But if you want to do like just the shortcut, you're not doing mega high budgets, then what I would do, because it's a lot easier, is do custom conversions for each category, and just optimize for those right off the bat. Absolutely.
Cool. So, hey guys, I'm currently using dynamic creative ads to make some tests. Do you have any recommendations using it on testing phase, number, max of text, title, etc.? Thanks.
That's a great question. And actually, just hold on 1 second. My laptop's going to die. I'm going to grab my charger. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying. So we have 13 people live. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying. I'm enjoying. I'm learning myself a lot. So it's good stuff to have Tim today here. So yeah, you can post your questions.
All right. All right, sorry about that. All right, okay, so let's see. I'm currently using dynamic creatives to make some tests. Do you have any, okay, so the max number, if your budget's, like, it depends on your budget. If you have a $10,000 a day budget to test, then you can test a lot more variations. But if you don't have a massive budget, which most people don't, right? So in general, don't test too many things. And it depends, like, so I'd say you wanna be like under 15 or 20 combinations total at a regular budget. If your budget's super low and you're only spending like $10 a day, then you're probably only going to want to have like 3 or 4, like 4 combinations, which would be like 2 headlines and like 2 images. 2 times 2 is 4. If you do like 3 headlines and 3 images, now you're up to 9 combinations. They multiply together, right? So
yeah.
And then you also try maybe a body text different or something, and then now you're up to 18. You know, they multiply. So it's like multivariate testing. So so you just pick whatever is the most important, which typically is going to be like the image or the video. It's probably the most important. Then the body text would probably be the next most important, and then probably the headline would be the next most important. So those are the 3 things that I would test them, you know, mainly. And if it were me, I would just do like 2 or 3 of each. Maybe like 3 or images or videos, then probably 2 or 3 body text, and then like 2 headlines, something like that. And that's going to put you at the, you know, around 15 to 20 max.
So the most like important variable would be the like creative, the image or video.
Absolutely. And then what's cool is actually with dynamic creative, when you're doing videos now, it can actually you can do like a little checkbox or a little slider, and it can automatically test different thumbnails for you. It's so cool.
Oh, nice. I didn't have
it automatically changes the length of the video too. Really cool.
In Europe, we don't have this yet. So might be just like in the United States.
Oh yeah, you guys have different stuff there.
Yeah. So would you create a lookalike audience of less than 50 purchases? I mean, you can't, right? It's like 100.
You have 100. But at 100, it does make a difference. When I was doing the class action lawsuits, those leads cost, you know, hundreds of dollars per lead. So sometimes I would just like go through and just like be breaking even until I got to 100 purchases, and then I would make a lookalike as soon as I could, and then I would be profitable. So it definitely makes a difference. Like even at 100, it's worth doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you found like custom conversions, like lookalikes created from custom conversions versus created from events? Like, have you found the difference in performance?
Typically, standard events, when you hard code it in the pixel, they track better. With custom conversions, since you're relying on the Facebook pixel and reading the URL, it's not as accurate. But as far as like the lookalikes off of them, the lookalikes are just going to be a little bit different because the custom conversions aren't as accurate. But it's a very small difference. There's a lot other things you can do with lookalikes that'll make a bigger difference, like you know, basing your lookalike on only the last 30 days instead of like all time, or getting a lookalike of like only your best purchasers that spent the most money, or only lookalikes of people that bought at least 3 times. Stuff like that you can do, and those make a huge difference. Yeah.
Cool. Do you use Canvas ads actively for e-com?
Yes. I actually have a retargeting ad running right now for myself even. It's a Canvas ad, but it's like a collection Canvas ad. It's an experience, whatever you want to call it. So I do run that, and that actually crushes for e-com. So I do recommend that you try that if you haven't tried that yet. Absolutely.
So that's performing well for you. That's performing well for you, right?
Yes, very well. And then for clients where we run some like compliant advertorials, what's working really good is taking people to like a custom made canvas where you have like a video at the top, then like a headline, and then your advertorial right in the canvas, and then a button at the bottom for that takes you to the lander. Like, so you just bypass the so you don't have to. Usually you make an ad, right, and then they click through. They have to go to the advertorial, and then they have to read through and click through that, right? And you lose a lot of people. Usually the click through is like 20% or so. So you're losing like 80% of people there, right? And a lot of them are because of the bounce rate. So when you just put your advertorial right in a Canvas ad, there's very low bounce because it's like an instant. And then you can just bypass the advertorial and go right to the lander. So you save a lot of like lost traffic there.
Cool, that's great tip. So, which events will you two be at this year organizing or attending?
What's up, Yev? How's it going, man? So which events will you two be at this year, organizing or attending? I will personally be at the next event coming up is Affiliate World Europe, one of my favorites. Actually, Affiliate World Europe and Affiliate World Asia are my favorites. So I'll definitely be there, and then also at the iStack event. Then I'll be at Affiliate Summit in New York City, which is like a month after that. And then I'll be at a bunch of random ones, actually. There's one in Italy. I think it's called Digital Innovation Days. I have to look it up, but I'm speaking there in, I think it's like October. And then also in December in Thailand for Affiliate World Asia. And then I have a bunch more on the schedule that I'm not thinking of at the moment. But which ones are you going to, Alexander?
I'll be in Barcelona as well.
Cool.
I'll be speaking. Go to Singapore next month. End of this year, Thailand as well.
Nice. What are you speaking about in Barcelona?
So yeah, basically like how to like, for example, if campaign does not perform, like how to recover, like how to break it down into smaller parts, like identify KPIs, like throughout the funnel.
Nice.
Fix it, like troubleshooting basically.
How to troubleshoot. That's perfect.
Yeah. Cool. So who's your favorite GOT character here?
Definitely the Dragon Queen, Daenerys Targaryen. She's awesome.
Cool.
Christina is funny.
So we are young ones, and we didn't have a bunch of budget. But what do you guys suggest the optimal budget for testing products? How many adsets? What about the interest?
So that's a good question. And there's so many variations there because it depends on how much the product costs and stuff. But in general, minimum, I would try at least 3 ad sets for a new product. We have some clients at our agency where we're constantly, we're rolling out new products every week. So we deal with that too. But we will typically test with a minimum of 5 ad sets, all with different interests. And then, at least 3 to 6 ads per ad set, sometimes more. Again, it totally depends on a bunch of factors. And budget-wise, just whatever you can afford. Ideally, though, you'd optimize for purchases because it'll typically do much better. But you don't want to run into the problem we talked about earlier in this podcast or interview, whatever, about where you don't have enough data, and then Facebook is showing you, showing your ads to the wrong audience accidentally because you don't have enough data. So you want to make sure you don't run into that issue. So in general, though, the more ad sets, the better. And then you want to try like all different interests, like super different. Try some like TV shows, some movies, some regular interests. etc. I found that actually it's funny. People don't really take advantage of targeting TV shows. And there's a huge opportunity there because all big TV shows on Facebook have like millions of fans, and people don't really target them. But if you do some research, you can find all the different demographics for certain TV shows, and it's just kind of like an untapped little gold mine.
Oh, it's interesting. So it's not that competitive then.
It's way less competitive because, like, let's say you're running, I don't know, weight loss or something, right? Compliantly, of course, right? But you can target weight loss, lose weight. These are the things that everyone's typing into the box, right? Yeah. And then they're clicking the suggestion, seeing what's there. Yeah. But what about like, I don't know, Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig, or I don't know, some of those fat people TV shows like My 600-Pound Life, or I don't know what you guys have in Europe, but like targeting TV shows about that are the same demographic. So people aren't targeting, people aren't doing that, so the competition's way lower and thus your costs will be lower.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
So guys, thanks for this. Amazing. Do you suggest using an old ad account with a new pixel for a new store or a brand new ad account?
Say that one more time. I only heard half of it.
So do you suggest using an old ad account with a new pixel for a new store or a brand new ad account?
Easy. Brand new ad account all day long. If you cannot, per Facebook terms and service, terms of their ad policy, you actually cannot reuse an ad account for anything. So if let's say you use an ad account for, I don't know, an e-com store, and then it doesn't work, you need to throw that ad account away, basically stop using it and do a new one for your new store. You can't just like delete all the campaigns and make new ones. One, if the demographics are even a little bit different, that's going to hurt you. Two, it's actually against Facebook policy. So you could lose your ad account for that. And I have seen people lose their ad account for that. So just make a new ad account. It's a little bit of extra work because you got to remake audiences and some other stuff, obviously. But it'll help you in the long run. So
cool. So your big focus is like data, right? Like it's all about the data. It's all about the pixel, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the data, all about the pixel, and it's all about understanding how machine learning works. In that, if you understand how it works, then you can kind of use the algorithm to your advantage more. Obviously having good creatives is super important. I'm not like a creative genius though. I have other people kind of help with ads. I can do decent ones, you know what I mean? But I'm not like a creative genius. I'm like, as long as I have my good ad someone else kind of put together, or I got lucky and did myself, then I can make it work because I can pick good audiences. I can set up my campaign structure properly. I can make all the right custom audiences, and all that stuff's like the technical. The creative aspect, is the actual creative. So that's my personal weak spot that I'm working on improving. But yeah, I love the data, man. I'm a nerd. I'm a total math geek.
That's advantage. I mean, with Facebook, it's all, like creating an understanding and, basically finding these like correlations between numbers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's similar to stock trading, actually, like that.
Have you done any like stock trading? Day
trading, yeah, I did day trade. I don't know, probably 5 years ago. Just a little bit, nothing crazy. I'm not like a pro, but it's scary, man. In Facebook, right, when you're running ads and you have a good ad set, you can like raise the budget and that you'll probably make more money, or you can pause a bad ad if you have another good ad and you can say, hey, I'll probably make my money back, But when you're doing day trading and you buy low, let's say, and you're just praying it goes up, there's nothing you can do. There's not like a metric you can look at or a KPI there is, I guess, some KPIs. I'm not super, a pro day trader or anything, but you just have very little control. So it was driving me. It was like very hard. It was just very stressful, very stressful.
Cool. So what's your actual testing method if you want to test a single product, CBO or adset budget? How many ad creatives, and do you target one country per campaign or certain countries?
Okay, so what's your actual? So question, I would do ad set budget. Like I mentioned earlier, CBO has been really iffy for most people, and for me especially. I found it's only working maybe 20% of the time or so. So I would do ad set budget for testing, because you don't want to do CBO and then find out that and then it didn't work, and then you think the product sucks when really it could have been the CBO that was the problem. And then next question, how many ad creatives? Typically I start with 4 or so unique creatives and then duplicate them once so that you have like 8 total. But I'm using dynamic creatives more and more. So when you do it like that, you're only going to have 1 creative in your ad set, but it's technically like having a bunch. So when I do it like that, I'll end up usually with like 15 to 20 variations. It's kind of like my sweet spot. And do you target one country per campaign or certain countries? That's a good question. I've tried a bunch of both. And Facebook stores data on a campaign level for the most part. So when you make a new campaign, you're almost starting from scratch. There's of course some data that Facebook saves on an ad account level of your past, who's bought and all that kind of stuff. But it's almost resets your data when you make a new campaign in that campaign only. So sometimes if the countries are super different, like let's say I'm doing US and then Asia, I'll probably do different campaigns for that. But if I'm doing US and maybe UK where it's all English speaking, then I might do the same campaign. But what I found is that what's working better is I typically will just do one campaign now, and then do, if I can, worldwide targeting, and then just exclude the countries where you get like fraud and stuff like that, like Nigeria and stuff like that. So Venezuela, so typically I'll try to do worldwide, and then it's all in one ad set, and then just exclude not good countries, and then you have that big audience, because when you're bidding on purchases or add to carts or whatever you're bidding on, Facebook's looking at your audience like, hey, here's your audience here, right? And then they're like, okay, you want purchasers? Here's a purchaser. Here's a purchaser. They're just like picking out, hopeful purchasers out of that audience, right? So the bigger the audience, the more potential purchasers there are. So in general, bigger audiences usually work better.
Cool. So it basically like gives Facebook like more room, kind of like more flexibility, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Like let's use an extreme example and say that your audience is only like 10,000 people, right? Small audience. How many Facebook can't pick out that many purchasers from there because it's just a small audience. But when you get Facebook 10 million people, there's a lot more purchasers in there, so it's going to be much cheaper.
Very similar question to this. So 300,000 people in there, right? And yeah,
the audience is just too small.
Yeah,
300K audience is just too small. After a few days, if you're spending a decent amount of money, you're just gonna burn it. It's gonna be saturated. So you're gonna have to start. I get this from a lot when people are running traffic in some countries in Europe and whatnot, and the population's not that big.
Yeah.
They burn it quick, and they're like, hey, what can I do? So okay, here's what you do: is you bid on other events. Bid on call your purchase a lead. Call it a complete registration. Call it, call it a start trial. Like there's all these other events that you can do, which will pick different people out of your audience, but it's the same audience. But it'll pick different people out of the audience. Okay. So that's one thing you can do. And then there's also, you can run broad and do like the carpet bomb method, where you just basically run like a video to everybody and just retarget the video viewers with your ad. Works really well too. And it's good for branding too. But yeah, in the smaller countries, it is a little more work. You got to refresh your creatives and stuff a lot.
Cool. What's an average CPC for highly profitable ads?
There's no answer there. Yeah. It could be anywhere, all over the place, but totally depends. But I found that actually across e-com in general, typically if you can be under $1 per click, you're going to be okay. That's just, again, a rough general number. It's different for different niches, but I've seen a good average has been $1 per click. That if you're below that, you'll be profitable. Above it, you'll probably lose money. But again, that's just kind of like really rough ballpark number.
And do you pay attention like to this? So now like the relevant score, like they removed it. So they have the quality, they have the conversion, right? And have like
engagement rate, yeah. So what was the question? Yeah, those have been very helpful. If you find that you're like in the bottom, 10 or 20% for any of those categories, it's definitely something you should work on. So for example, let's say that it says that your engagement rate is low. All you need to do is run some engagement PPE to that post ID, and then the engagement rate for that post ID will go up, and then your conversions will come in cheaper. If it says you have a bad landing page experience, it means you probably have a high bounce rate, etc. So you need to, and a slow load time. So you need to speed up your landing page, and then that'll be a faster loading page and a lower bounce rate, and then also increase your time on site. So it has all these like added benefits. But yeah, those new metrics have been so far pretty helpful in being able to identify what to fix.
Cool. Is there a minimum amount of assets which should have in CBOs? How do you scale CBOs?
So that's a good question. I wouldn't say per se there's a minimum, but I guess like at least 5 would be what would be my minimum at least. And then as far as how many total though, that's going to depend on the budget. So like how many conversions you're getting daily. How do you scale CBOs? You just up the budget and you can add new ad sets if you need. But again, it depends how many you have already. But if you only have like 3 ad sets, let's say, then to scale it, you're going to need more ad sets. If you just up the budget on 3 ad sets only, then it's a very good chance that you're going to spend a lot of money and waste a lot of money. I mean, but you can actually use a surfing method on CBO also, where you just crank the budget on midday. But you have to have a lot more conversions. You need to have more like 20 or 30 conversions for the day because it's across the whole campaign and not just an ad set. So, yeah.
Cool. And do you recommend some marketing tool for saving time and to optimize campaigns? As manager, it's killing me.
I feel you. So I like RevealBot, and we actually have a deal in AdLeaks. You get 30% off, which is pretty nice. And RevealBot is like you can set automated rules. So if you can say like if the last 3 days my ROAS is like less than 2, pause the ad. Or if today the spend is higher than 50 and the purchases is equal to 0, then pause the ad. Or the ad set, or whatever you want. You can say if the cost per click, you can base it on cost per click, you can base it on relevance score, you can base it on whatever you want. Pretty much every metric is available. But that was a big time. That was probably the biggest time saver for me. Was implementing RevealBot and getting my automated rules down. That's been a game changer. Otherwise, you have to sit at the computer all day long and refresh, and it's a hassle. So
especially in Q4, right?
Oh, especially yeah.
So I have good sales on LLAs from purchase 1-2%, but not at all 2 to 4, 4 to 6, etc. Is that normal? How can I improve it?
That's somewhat normal, although usually you're going to find completely varied results. But instead of, so what I do is I don't like doing like 1 to 2% because then you only have a 1% size audience. So in the US, I'll use as an example, 1% lookalike is about 2 million people or so. So a 2% would be 4 million people. But if you do only a 1 to 2%, it's only 2 million people. It's not 0 to 2. So what I do is when I make lookalikes, I do 0 to 1, 0 to 2, 0 to 3, 0 to 4, 0 to 5, and so on, all the way up to 10. So that like a 5% lookalike then is like 10 million people. The way that looks like this question is that you're doing 4 to 6% is only that couple percent. So it's only 4 million people. So instead, try 0 to 6. And then you have a much bigger audience, and that'll probably do better. You'll have a little bit of auction overlap, but it shouldn't be that bad.
Cool. That's a great tip. But website conversion for the targeting, even if you don't have enough data, is okay, right?
But website conversions return. So using website conversions for retargeting if you don't have enough data. Yeah, I mean, on retargeting, you're not going to get, 10 purchases a day per ad set necessarily. It depends on the ad set, obviously. But so what I usually do is I'll do for retargeting, I'll do website conversions. But then in the all the way at the bottom of the ad set settings, you can say like what to optimize for. So I'll usually optimize for, so if it's a big audience, like let's say you have 500,000 people, like 3-second video viewers, maybe for retargeting, then I'll do website conversions and just optimize for conversions, purchases, easy, right? But if let's say it's a small audience of only people that like add to cart but didn't check out, that's not going to be 100,000 people, right? So, so for that, then I'll just do impressions. I'm still choosing the conversions objective, purchases, but then at the bottom of the settings, I'm choosing impressions for optimize for, so that everyone is seeing my ad, and not just because Facebook, it's already a warm audience. Those people added to cart. I don't need Facebook to try to pick out purchasers. I just want to show my ad to all of them. So then you want to use impressions. And then if it's somewhere in the middle, like maybe view content, something like that, where it's a decent sized audience, but not huge, then I'll optimize for the landing page views. But it's still all the conversion objective. Yeah.
Cool. So what's your opinion about CPO becoming mandatory? Is that a strategy for Facebook to raise the amount spent by advertisers on the beginning? What's your thinking about the testing phase with CPO? Sorry for this. Lots of questions.
So yeah, a lot of questions. But my opinion on CBO becoming mandatory is that it's a bad move by Facebook. I don't personally think that they should do that. I wish it was up to me. But I do think that there's a chance that they're going to push it back. They have announced rollouts before, and then when that's why they announce it so much early, is so they can have people testing it heavily. And then if it's not working so hot, then they'll push it back. Maybe they say, hey, we're going to wait till Q1 of next year or whatever. Because they don't want to lose, if advertisers are not having a good time with it, they don't want to lose people a bunch of money, right? And then let's see, the next question, is it a strategy for Facebook to raise the amount spent by advertisers in the beginning? I don't think so. I think that it's their long-term strategy to kind of automate more of the media buying process that they can. Just like they like to do auto placements, which I don't really like, but it can work in some cases. But it's just an attempt for Facebook to make it easier mainly for like local advertisers, honestly, so they don't have to like put as much work in. And let's see, what's your thinking about test phase with CBO? I like the testing phase of I don't know what you're. I was thinking you meant the learning phase, but maybe you mean how do you test with CBO? With CBO, I don't recommend testing with CBO. I recommend testing with ad set budgets, and then if you want to test CBO, then find like at least 5 good ad sets and regular ad set budgets with your good audiences. Find your good ads, and then duplicate those into a CBO with your 5 best ad sets. A few or 5 or 8, whatever, your good ads in every one of those, and then test CBO like that. You have a much better chance of success. And then just make sure you set a minimum of like 2x your CPA per ad set, so that each one spends at least a little bit before Facebook decides where to spend the money. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
Cool. Would you recommend some apps for video creative?
Okay, so yeah, iMovie I like actually. You can actually make video like movie trailers. They're really cool for ads, and it's drag and drop template, very nice and easy. Besides that, obviously like Adobe Premiere if you want to make high quality ones. If you have like a Lumen 5 is pretty cool if you're going to do like kind of like simpler ones, where you just want to like put like a little clip in there, an image and some overlay text, then it's nice and easy. It's another one I'm thinking of. I can't remember the name though, so I'll have to get back to you on that one. Let's take like 1 or 2 more questions, then I got to call it a day.
Yeah, sure. So Alex and Tim, what are your 5 rules, principles for success with Facebook ads? Able to test a product with low budget, for example, $5. What I understand is I'll go one step on the funnel back and optimize for add to cart, etc. Thank you guys. Wish you all the best.
Yeah, $5. It depends. I would probably do. You can try add to cart, but it's probably not going to do well. It's probably not going to do well. But it's going to gather data. So I'd probably start it with purchase, and just so one little cool hack, and it does for $5. It's tough for $5, honestly. What I would do if I was trying to spend only $5 to test a product is I would go get some traffic from like I don't know, Instagram pages or Facebook groups or something about that product, and then just use that $5 a day on retargeting. Retarget only, because then you'll actually have a good ROI. $5 for testing a product really isn't enough. Now, if you're saying $5 per ad set and a bunch of ad sets, then that's a different story. But in general, you want to go back and optimize for add to carts, something that you can get at least enough conversions. Otherwise, it just won't optimize properly.
Cool, and that will be probably the last one. So, guys, Steve has to go. So, do you use costs for add to cart as either the indicator ad will perform on your target ROAS?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and that's a really good question, actually. So, especially with high ticket items, I definitely use that as an indicator. Especially, for example, like my masterminds or event sales that we've done, etc. People don't necessarily purchase the same day. Sometimes they got to think about it for a few days or go check flights, and it takes a few days sometimes. So I usually use add to cart as like my indicator. And then so there was like one example where we're selling tickets to an in-person event, not a mastermind, just like an in-person event. And I knew that if I had 0.5 ROAS for the day, that after 28 days I would have a 2 ROAS. So I would double my money. I definitely use that as an indicator, but it is only an indicator. So definitely look back at your purchases and make sure that you're multiplying it out properly.
Cool. I think these questions will just keep coming like for the whole night. Yeah. So will we take like one more, or that's it?
Yeah, let's do. We'll do one. We'll do one more.
Okay.
Take a good one.
So are you experiencing any huge decrease in ROAS across e-com or direct response accounts since the March 15 Facebook blackout? What are you currently doing, anything to combat it?
We have seen. I wouldn't say a huge decrease per se, but some decreases for sure in ROAS since then. But all we did to combat it was switch back to, because that's when we were testing CBO a lot heavier. So all we did was really switch back to ad set budgets. That helped a lot. And then just started a new campaign, same ad account, but new campaign, turned on more page post engagement on post IDs. So the engagement rate was higher. Made sure to post better to the page, like memes and inspirational stuff, and boost it to your fans to increase the quality, because you're not only showing people ads. And then in some cases we had to make some new creatives. Make some fresh new creatives. That took us right back. But I'd say that the biggest thing was probably switching back to ad set budget. CBO is just it's iffy right now. That's all. It's just not fully in there yet.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tim. We have a lot more.
I got an appointment, but I would love to do another one of these soon. Actually, this has been fun. You guys have good questions.
Let's do so. Guys, Tim will be in Barcelona. Like, that's the closest event to now, right?
Yeah, in July, I have a mastermind the 2 days before Affiliate World. Then speaking at Affiliate World, I believe. Then also at iStack, and then I have the retreat in Ibiza, which will be a lot of fun.
Cool. So there are like a lot of like options for you to like work with Tim, like get in touch with Tim, like get his help on your campaigns. It's amazing. I love it. I love this interview. I love the questions. I love your answers. I've learned a lot myself. So good stuff. Let's do another one sometime.
Hell yeah, man! I would love to, and I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah. Thank you. And so guys, if you have any questions, please post below. Maybe next time we will answer them. We'll schedule another one. So pleasure connecting with you.
I appreciate it, man, and have a good day. And thank you, Facebook ad rock stars.
Thank you, guys.